The winter wind blew through the wooden walls of a small log cabin in Kentucky in the year 1809. Inside the cabin, a baby boy slept quietly while his parents worked hard to survive another cold day. That baby was Abraham Lincoln, a child who would one day become one of the most important leaders in the history of the United States. But at that time, no one could imagine that the poor boy in that simple cabin would grow up to change a nation. Abraham's father, Thomas Lincoln, was a farmer and a carpenter. He worked long hours cutting wood and farming small pieces of land to support his family. His mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, was kind and gentle. She loved her children very much and tried to teach them good values. Life for the Lincoln family was not easy. They were very poor and lived in a small wooden cabin with almost nothing inside. There were no comfortable beds, no electricity, and sometimes not enough food. When Abraham was still very young, his family moved from Kentucky to Indiana. They hoped to find better land and a better life. The journey was long and difficult. They traveled through forests and muddy paths, carrying their few belongings. When they arrived in Indiana, they built another small log cabin in the wilderness. Abraham was only a small boy, but he already understood that life was hard. Abraham did not have the chance to go to school regularly. In those days, schools were far away and many poor children had to work instead of studying. Abraham only attended school for a short time, perhaps less than a year in total. But even though he had little formal education, he had something very special, a strong desire to learn. Books were rare and valuable in the countryside. Whenever Abraham heard that someone had a book, he tried to borrow it. He would walk many miles just to read a single book. At night, he sat near the fireplace and read by the weak light of the fire. Sometimes he wrote notes on pieces of wood or on the back of old paper because he had no notebooks. Young Abraham loved stories, history, and knowledge. He read every book he could find. He read about famous leaders, great ideas, and the world beyond the forests where he lived. Each book opened a new door in his mind. Slowly, he began to understand that education could change his life. When Abraham was 9 years old, something very sad happened. His mother, Nancy, became very sick and died. Her death was a terrible loss for the young boy. Abraham loved his mother deeply, and he felt lonely and heartbroken. Before she died, she told her children to always be kind and honest. These words stayed in Abraham's heart for the rest of his life. About a year later, Abraham's father married another woman named Sarah Bush Johnston. Sarah became a caring stepmother for Abraham and his sister. She quickly noticed that Abraham loved reading and learning. Instead of stopping him from studying, she encouraged him. She allowed him to spend time with books and supported his curiosity. Abraham always respected her and later said she was one of the best friends he ever had. As Abraham grew taller, he became known for his unusual height and strength. He was very tall and thin, with long arms and legs. People in the community often asked him to help with heavy work because he was strong and hardworking. Abraham cut wood, worked on farms, and helped his father with many tasks. One of his common jobs was splitting logs to make wooden fences. Because of this work, people later called him the rail splitter. Even though he worked very hard during the day, Abraham never stopped learning. He continued to read books whenever he had free time. He also enjoyed listening to people talk and tell stories. Soon he became known as a good storyteller himself. He could make people laugh and think at the same time. Abraham was also known for his honesty. One famous story says that once he realized he had accidentally given a customer the wrong change in a small store where he worked. When he discovered the mistake, he walked several miles to return the money. Because of actions like this, people began to call him Honest Abe. As a teenager, Abraham started to think about his future. He knew he did not want to spend his entire life doing only hard physical labor. He dreamed of becoming someone who could use his mind to help others. He was curious about laws, government, and how leaders made decisions. When Abraham was 21 years old, his family moved again, this time to Illinois. This move would begin a new chapter in his life. In Illinois, Abraham started working different jobs. He worked as a store clerk, a postmaster, and a surveyor. These jobs allowed him to meet many people and learn about the problems of ordinary citizens. During this time, Abraham also began studying law by himself. He borrowed law books and read them carefully. Without a teacher or a university, he taught himself the complex rules of law. His determination and patience helped him understand subjects that many people found difficult. Slowly, people started to notice his intelligence and honesty. They trusted him and respected his opinions. The poor boy who once studied by the firelight was becoming a thoughtful and educated young man. Abraham Lincoln's childhood was full of poverty, hard work, and sadness, but it was also filled with determination and hope. His love for learning and his strong moral values helped him rise above the difficulties of his early life. The young boy from the log cabin was still far from becoming president, but the foundation of his character had already been built. The world did not yet know that this tall, quiet young man from the American frontier would one day lead a divided nation and change history forever. But the journey had already begun, and the poor boy with big dreams was slowly preparing for a future that would inspire millions of people around the world. Abraham Lincoln's life began in poverty, but his determination and intelligence slowly opened new doors for him. After moving to Illinois as a young man, he started building a future for himself. He worked many different jobs, trying to learn about people and the world around him. He worked as a store clerk in a small village called New Salem. The job did not make him rich, but it gave him something more valuable, the chance to meet people and understand their daily struggles. Lincoln quickly became popular in the village. People liked his honesty, his kindness, and his sense of humor. He often told funny stories that made people laugh, but he also listened carefully when someone had a problem. The people of New Salem trusted him because they knew he would always try to do the right thing. During this time, Lincoln became interested in politics. He believed that government should serve the people and improve their lives. He wanted to help build roads, schools, and businesses so that communities could grow stronger. In 1832, when he was only 23 years old, Lincoln decided to run for the Illinois state legislature. It was his first attempt at political leadership. At that time, Lincoln was not well known and had little money for his campaign. He lost the election, but the experience taught him many important lessons. Instead of giving up, Lincoln worked even harder. He continued studying law and learning about government. His determination soon paid off. A few years later, Lincoln ran for the Illinois state legislature again. This time he won. The young man who once lived in a simple log cabin had now become a member of the state government. As a legislator, Lincoln worked hard and earned the respect of his colleagues. People admired his clear thinking and his ability to explain difficult ideas in simple words. While working in government, Lincoln continued studying law. Eventually he became a lawyer. He moved to the city of Springfield, Illinois, where he began practicing law in the courts. Lincoln traveled from town to town, helping people solve legal problems. Sometimes he rode on horseback for many miles to reach small villages where courts were held. As a lawyer, Lincoln gained a strong reputation for fairness and honesty. He often refused to take cases if he believed the client was dishonest. Instead of trying to win every case at any cost, Lincoln focused on finding the truth. His calm personality and logical thinking made him very successful. In 1842, Lincoln married a woman named Mary Todd. She came from a well-educated family and believed strongly in Lincoln's future. Together they built a family and had 4 children. Life was not always easy for them, but Mary supported Lincoln's dreams of becoming a national leader. Over time, Lincoln's interest in national politics grew stronger. One issue in particular troubled him deeply: slavery. In the United States during that time, millions of African Americans were forced to work as slaves, especially in the southern states. They had no freedom and were treated as property rather than human beings. Lincoln believed slavery was morally wrong. Although the country was divided on this issue, he felt that the nation could not remain both free and slave at the same time. He began speaking publicly against the spread of slavery into new territories. In the 1850s, Lincoln became involved in a series of famous debates with another politician named Stephen Douglas. These debates were about slavery and the future of the country. Many people came to listen as Lincoln and Douglas discussed their ideas. Lincoln's clear arguments and powerful words made him known across the nation. Although Lincoln lost that particular Senate race, the debates made him famous. People across America began to see him as a thoughtful and honest leader who cared deeply about the country. In 1860, Lincoln ran for President of the United States. At first, many people thought he had little chance of winning. He was not from a wealthy or powerful background, and some politicians underestimated him. But many ordinary citizens trusted him because he understood their struggles and spoke with sincerity. When the election results were announced, Abraham Lincoln had won. The poor boy who once read books by the fire in a small cabin had now become the President of the United States. However, his presidency began during one of the most dangerous moments in American history. Several Southern states disagreed strongly with Lincoln's views on slavery and decided to leave the United States. This division led to the American Civil War, a terrible conflict between the Northern and Southern states. As president, Lincoln faced enormous pressure and responsibility. Thousands of soldiers were fighting, and the future of the nation was uncertain. Despite the fear and suffering of war, Lincoln remained calm and determined. His goal was to preserve the Union and keep the country together. In 1863, Lincoln made one of the most important decisions of his life. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation, a document that declared freedom for millions of enslaved people in the Confederate States. This decision changed the purpose of the war and gave hope to those who had lived in slavery for generations. Lincoln's leadership helped guide the nation through the difficult years of war. His speeches inspired people to believe that freedom and unity were worth fighting for. One of his most famous speeches, the Gettysburg Address, reminded Americans that the nation was built on the idea that all people are created equal. After years of struggle, the Civil War finally came to an end in 1865. The Union was preserved, and slavery was coming to an end across the country. Lincoln hoped to rebuild the nation and bring peace between the Northern and Southern states. Sadly, only a short time after the war ended, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by a man who opposed his ideas. His death shocked the nation and filled millions of people with grief. The country had lost a leader who believed deeply in justice, unity, and freedom. Even though his life ended suddenly, Lincoln's legacy continues to inspire people around the world. He showed that a person does not need wealth or privilege to become great. With honesty, hard work, and determination, a poor boy from a small log cabin was able to lead a nation through one of its darkest times. Abraham Lincoln's story reminds us that true leadership comes from character and courage. His life remains a powerful example of how one person's determination can change the course of history and bring hope to millions.